The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Want the real story behind the sound bites and headlines? Let's find the facts. Remember, it's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. You are not paranoid or confused. You just need to know.
Welcome in, everybody. Time for another edition of Need to Know. Everything I think you need to know to make good decisions, to really kind of get your thoughts in line. Again, we don't tell you what to think or how to think. We just encourage you to think for yourself. That's the whole premise of the show. And I've got some real strong information today on not probably, that's a stupid word to insert, on clearly the hottest story right now, which is the continuing conflict, war, incursion, whatever you want to call it, happening in the Middle East as the Americans and Israelis have completely decimated the regime of Iran with just a relentless attack on all of their infrastructure, of their military complex. The people, of course, were taking to the streets just weeks before this began, demanding that the government start thinking about the people instead of their military desires. The economy in Iran was at a complete low point, just basic human services unavailable. And of course, they had been totally cut off from communication with the rest of the world, the government restricting any kind of outside access to anything that came from beyond their borders because they didn't want their people to be updated on what the rest of the world thought about their theocratic group of apocalyptic nutbags who dream of fulfilling the prophecy of the 8th century writings of Muhammad, talking about the Islamic State being the superior and only choice for a successful life. There's no freedom of religion, of course. If you do not believe as they believe, you are an infidel. And according to the writings of ancient Islamic doctrine, you are not suitable to live, and if you are able to conduct a life, it needs to be in service to your disloyalty of not supporting the only religious choice that you are available to have. We've got strong evidence. This is, I always talk about history, and people say, well, I don't really pay much attention to history. I don't like it. It's boring. You cannot understand where you are now if you don't have knowledge of where we've been and how we've arrived here. In 1812, the earliest times our country was formed, there was a war, the first war after the revolution where we won our independence, and right about the time of the second war with the British, the War of 1812, right before that, there was a conflict that we sent all of our ships to this same region, which is now the commonly referred to as the Straits of Hormuz, where it's always been a critical shipping lane for that part of the world that really saves you so much time of being able to cut up this little 2-mile waterway that links a couple of major waterways. It's become, in our era, the most important path for shipping of natural gas and particularly oil from many Middle East countries that use that strait regularly. And of course, I'm sure you keep hearing Strait of Hormuz, and I know most of you are familiar with its strategic importance for so many countries, but it's being so misreported, and the biggest part of this whole story is being ignored by the traditional media for one reason and one reason only. They don't want this operation to succeed. They want to find ways to criticize this administration and this president because they can't stand him, and any success, anything that he achieves has got to be immediately downplayed and criticized and even completely not factually reported because they can't let him have a triumph because that's one more nail in their coffin of getting control back of the government. And believe me, that is what these people aspire to. It's a different era now. I was talking to my great partner, Terry Quillian, who worked in the George W. Bush administration. She said, it's so different now. Of course, we had people criticizing our decisions and President Bush, what he wanted to do in the Middle East and other places. But once the wars or the fighting began, then even people on the other side were still completely pro-American and completely concerned about the welfare of our troops and all of the different things that were happening. Everybody was still on board because the president, it was acknowledged, was the commander in chief and was acting appropriately in terms of how our system is devised. You don't have that now. She was saying it's so different that now every single aspect is being criticized and disputed, and it's controversial. And we talked further about what nobody is looking at, and you're not going to hear this anywhere else, so I'm glad you're tuned in today. What is happening right now in the Straits of Hormuz with the Iranians desperately trying to mine that waterway to keep all shipping out of there, not just American, not just Israeli, who are the primary enemies here, but all of their neighbors in that region of the world depend on that waterway too to transport so much of the oil that they export. It's shut down to everybody. Iran is just I said it last week, and it's the best description. They are a giant boil on the ass of the rest of the world right now. This action was not only justified, it was long overdue. After the seizure of the government by these cleric nutcases, who again dream of being this late departing Khomeini, the former supreme leader. That's not a very highfalutin title, but the supreme leader who ingested a missile 2 weeks ago and ended his life at 86, just 24 hours after he was talking complete shit on America. Don't you dare even think about attacking our nation. The repercussions are going to be severe. We will defeat you. We will humiliate you. I mean, this guy didn't have a soapbox to stand and yet he's talking like he's Mr. T to Rocky. It's just so ridiculous how delusional these people are. But I told you last week on the show, this guy imagined it was his destiny to be the one to launch the crowning blow of the entire 13th century conflict between this fanatical, ancient religious belief and the rest of the world. He wanted to deliver, he wanted to develop nuclear weapons. Who cares if the Iranian people were starving and didn't have any job opportunities and the women are treated like not second-class citizens, 50th-class citizens. I mean, if you're a female in Iran, you have no rights whatsoever. You can't even stick your head out your front door without your entire face and hair being covered. It is just, it's such an ancient, archaic, ridiculous way, and you can bet your bottom dollar he was intending to use them because he was going to be the guy that fulfilled the prophecy of Muhammad in the 8th century. That was 1,300 years ago, folks. That the crowning battle for the control of the planet is coming, and that Islam is going to prevail. He was going to launch missiles. They were already developing intercontinental capabilities, which that meant they could reach just about anywhere in the world. The Middle East, of course, was under great threat. The way they've lashed out at the Israeli and American attacks and are raining bombs down on all their Arab neighbors, which are also Muslim brothers. It just shows the fact that they are appalled not only at the United States, the great Satan, Israel, the country that doesn't have the right to exist, but even the other Muslim faith countries in that region who they perceive have sold out to the West and don't have the right values to fulfill the ancient prophecies from back 1,300 years ago. So they are just as much now the enemy as anybody else in the world. And this had to be stopped. And Donald Trump, with good information that they were amassing this unbelievable artillery of all these missiles that they've been launching for 3 weeks now, they're finally down to just a handful a day because, frankly, they're running out of armaments. They don't have any left. They've bombarded everybody in that region. They've tried to get a foothold on their situation that is desperate. The couple of bombing raids, of course, the one back in June took out their big nuclear facility, but they still were trying to enrich uranium and get back on track there while stockpiling, spending every bit of money they make from their export of oil, predominantly to China, who's their biggest customer by far, because China has 1 billion people and no resources for energy other than coal. China is totally dependent on Iranian oil. So, with all that being said, it's a situation where, everybody's their enemy right now. And this action had to be taken because they were getting ready to go on the offensive. And the Mossad, the Israeli Secret Service, is the premier intelligence agency in the world. They know every flinch, every step, every move these people make with all their internal operatives. The way they took out the Hamas leader who had gone to Tehran for the induction, the inauguration of a new president, which is just a figurehead. The supreme leader, the cleric, is the guy really in charge. But remember how they took that guy out from Hamas, the guest room that they know he used at the headquarters, completely surrounded by military and protected. You would think it's the safest place on earth. Somehow the Israelis were able to get into that area in advance of this guy's visit and put explosives in the mattress of the bed he was using in the guest room, right in the middle of the Iranian headquarters, with military and all kinds of officials all around. And that guy, when he settled down for his rest that night after the big funeral and all the meetings and things to plan the next moves for Hamas in the Palestinian conflict, right when the guy settled into his pillow, there was a massive explosion in his mattress in the Iranian headquarters. I mean, that's how good these guys are. Remember what they did to Hezbollah with the fake pagers that all exploded at the same time, blowing guys' faces off, making their fingers be removed. These guys are just unbelievable. So when they told President Trump that they're getting ready to launch this attack, they're going on the offensive, we're probably down to just a couple of days. That's when the decision was made, and they did a great feint of acting like they were none the wiser, because a couple of days before that, to plan that attack, and I'm repeating a lot of what I had last week, but I'm getting to my point, I promise. The gathering of the supreme leader and the top commanders of all the different agencies within his realm. They didn't even do it in their underground headquarters. They were so arrogant and believed that they had everybody bamboozled and asleep at the switch. They met above ground. And of course, the Israelis, in 24 attack waves, took out the entire group. 42 casualties, including the supreme leader himself, who lived to be 86, but not beyond that, because he was taken out, his destiny taken away of being the guy who changed the world and restored it for the Islamic Muhammad writings. So now we're in a situation where still, despite all those successes, if you read the New York Times, if you read the Washington Post, if you listen to these Democrat commentators, they are saying this is a disaster. This is out of control. We don't have any kind of plan to exit there. We're accomplishing nothing except for alienating the rest of the world. We're doing just the opposite. We're saving the ass of the rest of the world and ourselves ultimately, because this evil regime, who was not in a position that they had any desire to have any kind of agreement or partnership, the Obama administration finance so much of what's happening here by thinking they could buy their influence, sending 2 plane loads of pallets of cash, reportedly billions of dollars, which revived the sagging economy of the Iranians previously, and put them on this path to nuclear domination, and allowed them to finance the three most militant radical groups, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, and finance all of their nefarious operations. So it had to be stopped. It had to be blacked out. And certainly all of that leadership was killed in that first raid. And the guy now who's supposedly the successor, his son, who's 66 years old, by the way, it's not some up and comer. It's an old man with just the same, ridiculous views as his lunatic father. He's not been seen in public since he was elevated to be the new supreme leader. And Israeli intelligence has let us know that their reports are he is badly disfigured. He may have even had a leg amputated. He's not able to speak. He's still in a hospital bed. And yet there's statements being issued by their government telling of all these things they're going to do to the rest of the world, and they're going to get their revenge and blah, blah, blah. That is supposedly the supreme leader making these speeches. It's just somebody reading a paper. God only knows who's writing this stuff. Maybe it's Chuck Schumer back here who keeps telling us that this is a disaster and we're losing the war, and this is an illegal war to start with. We had no business taking this action. It's just nonsense, and their agenda is not to root for the United States of America, to not see what the benefits are for us, but to be anti-Donald Trump. Because if this is a Trump victory, it's a big defeat for them. And that's all they care about: power and control, getting back into the government. They'll change the filibuster the first 5 minutes, where they'll have unlimited access to maintain power for the next half century. Our country will be turned in the direction that none of us want to go. We don't want to be a leftist socialist country. But here's the thing. I finally got to the point. Well, that's a lot of setup, but it was necessary in case you missed last week's show, because here's the big point right now, talking about the Strait of Hormuz. And here we are in a country where, as we drink our $15 Frappuccino at Starbucks, and we check our $800 Apple Watch, and we walk around in our $200 Nikes and live this lavish lifestyle that we are privileged to have in this country, the big deal right now in the media and in a lot of those coffee shops and different gathering spots is the price of gas is outrageous. It's gone up 17% since this war started. 17%. It was about $2.95 a gallon national average. Now it's up around $3.45. Oh my God. 50-cent increase in gas prices per gallon since this war started. This is a disaster. What is he thinking? How can Trump be doing this to us? Okay, you go to fill your car up. It's 50 cents more a gallon right now because of not because we have a shortage in this country. It's because the investors, the people on Wall Street, and the insurance companies that are concerned about safe passage of fuel and this Strait of Hormuz danger have made the market unstable enough right now that the price automatically goes up. We are within an eyelash of that price plummeting with the actions that are still to come. Here's the big deal that nobody's talking about. We don't have an energy shortage in this country. We are energy independent again for the second time in the second Trump administration. That we threw all that away in the 4 years of the fake administration with the puppet Joe Biden, who completely shut down the oil and gas industry in this country, or limited it, made it so we were importing a bunch of our oil from overseas from bandit regimes like the Iranians and Venezuela. All that's been straightened out now. We're back to being energy independent. Our prices have not gone up because we have a shortage. It's just gone up because the world market is unstable. But here's the thing that nobody's talking about that is the major point I want to make today. And that point is the governments that are feeling it, as I mentioned before, China with 1 billion people, totally reliant on the importation of oil. And all, like 80% of the oil that they get comes from the shipping lane known as the Strait of Hormuz. So this is just absolutely disastrous for China, who's not even remotely energy independent. And nobody's talking about that. They're our biggest geopolitical rival. This is devastating to China right now. It's a happy development, not an accident. I've heard critics saying, "Well, how could we not have secured the Strait of Hormuz before we did this? This was an obvious move by the Iranians to try to put the lockdown on that shipping lane." We were very much aware of the Strait of Hormuz. I contend that this administration and this leadership of our military and our strategic moves, CENTCOM, Central Command, short for that, I think they were very much in the know that the Hormuz thing was going to be a factor. Of course they knew that. That was going to be the first place that Iran pivoted to try and punish the rest of the world for this incursion. But the parties being hurt by this are some of our biggest geopolitical rivals. North Korea, China, completely basically cut off on all the importation of oil. And we'd already delivered a body blow to China by liberating Venezuela a few months ago, which was the other major source of oil that they were receiving, once again transmitted through the strait. China is basically completely cut off right now, and they're in a desperate spot. China almost needs to come and take action themselves to get the Strait of Hormuz open. Other countries like Japan, who is certainly an ally of ours, Japan totally reliant on that strait. So much of the rest of the world, the Americans don't have to. They're saying, well, we're going to have to put soldiers on the ground to secure that. We don't need to secure it. The rest of the world needs to secure it, not America. America has a plethora, a complete supply. We are energy independent. We're not dependent on the Strait of Hormuz. We were getting a little bit of shipment there, but that was almost completely negated now with the energy policies and the development we have in our country. The only state in the whole country is dependent on these shipments is stupid California, because the idiot Gavin Newsom has taken away all production ability for California. They're not allowed to refine or do anything with the oil and gas because of the ridiculous climate change, which has been completely shelved and put in a jar labeled fraud for good. Now Trump is actually fighting back there. He's going to do offshore, just off the coast of California, on federal property, and start exploration and development of oil there. So the bottom line is this is devastating for our geopolitical enemies, the Russians, BFFs. With the Iranians, they've been helping each other develop offensive weapons. The Russians have taken huge steps in advancing the nuclear program of of Iran, making it possible for them to do this high degree of enrichment of uranium. So once again, all of these nefarious activities of these countries that are our biggest opponents and biggest rivals are being just devastated by this action and by the reaction by the idiot Iranians who just keep spewing missiles indiscriminately all around the Mideast, alienating everybody in that region as well. That's who they're in partnership with. And it's going to force, once again, the Chinese to take action, the North Koreans to take action, of actually them having to be the one with their partners, Iran, who now, through their actions, are shutting them off from all of their energy opportunities. They're going to have to be the ones to take the lead in getting the Strait of Hormuz back open. It's so brilliant in its conception and how it's worked out. And this is not an accident, folks. This was the idea. This was the time to strike, because this was the time where we would make a statement and seize our rightful place in this world that is our absolute right and privilege to have. So that's something you needed to know. This is okay. I'm sorry, it's going to cost you $8 or $9 more for a couple of more weeks to fill up your car, but suck it up. Maybe just get a regular coffee for a day or two instead of the $15 Crappuccino, whatever it is at Starbucks that people like so much. Maybe hold the whipped cream a couple of days. Maybe you go to Target and buy a pair of shoes to mow the grass. You don't have to get them from Nike or, wherever. It is not a financial crisis in this country like the leftist morons that want to tell you what to think. This is just a blip on the radar, but it is devastating for so many parts of the world and so many countries that are our main opponents to try and keep control of the geopolitical situation. That's what you needed to know. Important information indeed that nobody else is telling you. You heard it here on Need to Know. We'll be back with you next week. Don't miss Kiefer and Curry this week. We've got an interesting show coming up on that as well, right here on TKR. Have a great week, everybody.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.